Hey folks, before we begin today's show, I want to thank our awesome sponsors. The first is Idle Academy. Idle is the first and only authorized vocational school for instructional design and online learning. It includes a comprehensive hands-on curriculum with certifications, credentials, expert coaches, mentors, a community of practice, paid experience opportunities, industry-preferred software access, live events, and ongoing updates. Your entire instructional design career is neatly packaged behind a single login. Check out all the details at www.idlecourses.com/academy, and you can use my code Luke for $88 off the yearly membership. Also, question for you, by the way. Do you want to learn about instructional design with me and other learning nerds? I'm happy to say that the 5th cohort for Instructional Design Institute is now accepting applications. Come nerd out with us inside of our Instructional Design Fundamentals course. You'll learn about how learning works, backward design, learning strategies, universal design for learning, AI, creating portfolios, and much more. You'll also be getting my feedback and guidance along the way as you create your own learning experience inside of Brightspace. Each week, we have live webinars to break down topics and to collaborate together. And our students come from all sectors, by the way: higher education, K through 12, corporate America, freelance, and even the government. So hey, apply today to be a part of the next cohort starting on Monday, July 15th. And I can't wait to see you there. Okay, let's bring on the introduction music and let's start the show. Hello, learning nerds, and welcome on in to the nerdiest podcast you are going to hear today. My name is Dr. Luke, and I'm your host of this show. I'm a senior instructional designer, program manager, author, blogger, podcaster, and instructor. And really, folks, I'm here to be your learning guide to help you on your instructional design journey. And of course, I shouldn't need to say this, but all are welcomed on into this show. Whether you're an aspiring instructional designer or you're a current instructional designer, all of you are welcome on in here. And of course, you can find all of the resources that I have for you over at drlukehobson.com. Today's episode, folks, it's a hot topic. Today, we are talking about portfolios. And I'm going to be getting a little philosophical with you for a second, where this episode is called, Are Portfolios Going to Become Required for Instructional Designers? And I certainly want to be able to focus and to highlight that word of required. The inspiration for today's episode came when I was thinking about my own instructional design journey and going back to 2014 and now just thinking about where we are today. And really, it's wild to think about the rapid growth of the instructional design field over the last decade. When I began actively pursuing instructional design positions back in 2014, having a portfolio was seen as going above and beyond. You were an overachiever if you had a portfolio back then. And I remember walking into interviews with a printed portfolio and showing it to employers who immediately started to go through my cheaply produced binder from Staples. And I didn't know how to create a portfolio, and what I read online only confused me even more. You might remember this from past episodes, but I did not go to school to become an instructional designer. I went to school to become a graphic designer. So when it came to portfolios, I stuck with what I knew, and I based a portfolio around the guidelines of a graphic design portfolio. And after some modifications, I had an instructional design portfolio-ish. Definitely wasn't that great, but off I went to displaying this to employers. And for graphic design positions, you had to have a portfolio back then. It was essential. It was non-negotiable. You needed one. If you didn't have one, they simply would not interview you. And now, in 2024, I'm starting to see how instructional design is going in this direction. All fields of quote-unquote design, like graphic design, user experience design, web design, and things of this nature, they emphasize and stress the significance of portfolios, and instructional design, in my opinion, is now inside of this type of list. Having talked with many, many of you aspiring instructional designers and current instructional designers trying to leave your employer to go to another one, it is abundantly clear on what works well and what does not. What does not work well is relying on hope as a strategy, hoping that someone will take a chance on you if they review your resume close enough. Doesn't cut it nowadays. Back in 2014, when only a handful of instructional design hopefuls were applying to jobs, it could have worked then. But now, some of these job postings are receiving 100 plus applicants within the first 2 weeks. I experienced this myself not too long ago with trying to hire a new instructional designer to join the team, and from a hiring manager's perspective, it was extremely overwhelming and something that I haven't encountered so much before. Many of the candidates, by the way, had similar qualities with their education, professional development, and years of experience. Yes, having specific search parameters can help with narrowing down the list of candidates, but it's not nearly enough as you may think. Whittling down a list from 100 names to 75 isn't doing a lot in the grand scheme of things. So hypothetically speaking, if the playing field is leveled, what does a hiring manager look for? In my experience and opinion, it's the portfolio. Now, to be clear, can you still obtain an instructional design position without one? Yes, you can. And there will always be outliers. I still receive emails every now and then of someone reaching out for help because they accidentally became an instructional designer. And I still have no idea how on earth that's happening nowadays, but it's a reminder that anything is possible. For the majority of new roles, though, I'm predicting that portfolios will become required in the near future. Yes, I know, they're arduous, but I would rather you work smarter than harder. You could continue to apply to job after job and maybe have some calls back, or you could increase your odds by highlighting your incredible work. What most people don't realize is that the best kind of interview is when you can shift the format of the interview to go towards your favor. For instance, let's say that you are in a panel interview and people are going around the room asking you question after question. They are listening to how you speak, your confidence, your thought process, and everything of a sort. When you can answer a question by supporting your statement with evidence, that is a massive win. I advise folks all the time that you can start answering a question in your own way and then saying, would you mind if I share my screen and show you how I've done this before in the past? Or if your interview is in person, you could bring handouts or go up to a whiteboard and draw your answer out. Any of those things work. And God, I love whiteboards. They're so awesome. But anyway, that is showing a little bit of my age. But anyway, any hiring manager should be thrilled to see an example. At that point in time, the nature of the interview will shift and the follow-up questions will be on your work from your portfolio. I have seen this happen many, many times where the interviewers will skip the broad questions and start to ask incredibly specific follow-up questions with what the candidate is showing. This is a natural part of the process. If you show someone an amazing type of learning activity, assessment, course map, infographic, whatever it is, if you show someone something incredible from a learning experience perspective, and if they don't ask any follow-up questions, I mean, that's a red flag. That's being able to say, like, why don't you want to learn more about what I'm doing? Because you just asked me this question, and then now I'm showing you how I did this. Please ask me follow-up questions is essentially what this should be saying. And every time that this has happened in an interview where I have been present, where a person showed their portfolio, immediately all of these follow-up questions came about from that. And that's what you want. That goes in your favor because then Everything is now focusing on you and your past work and your accomplishments. So those types of super vague, broad questions are starting to fade away. And instead, people are asking more thought-provoking questions that are going to be interesting for you to be able to answer. And of course, the bonus part of all of this, by the way, is that if this happens to you, your interview is going to become memorable. You want these people to remember you. And I know that sounds silly, but as someone who has gone through 10 interviews in a day before, where you're like, ooh, this is taking a lot out of me, is that when someone actually does something where you're like, oh yeah, that person with the awesome portfolio who talked about how they used SPL in this way and how they've talked about project-based learning and universal design for learning and DEI and all these other things, you're like, yes, share more with me on what you have done. You are going to stick out from the crowd. I will also advise a word of caution here to say that you should put time into the portfolio before sending this over to employers. I have seen some portfolios that were clearly a work in progress. They were unfinished, broken links, placeholders, or simply not designed on certain pages, and it just said like insert text here, and it's like, that's not, you don't want to do that either, because if you submit an incomplete portfolio, you are risking having the hiring managers scrutinize your work, or should I say lack of work, because that's what you're giving them to be able to say, hey, you can evaluate me on what I have done. And if the evaluation is on something incomplete, that's not going to go well. And this is not a fair and accurate representation of your work ethic, who you are as a person, as a designer. And overall, it's just not going to go well. Well, the main theme of today's topic is the importance of portfolios. Submitting a sloppy portfolio won't do you any good. I think about the saying from the Navy as far as for slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you want to know how to make an amazing portfolio, by the way, I have documented this several times over the years, and especially on this show as well. You can listen to my advice with the podcast episode that is called How to Design Instructional Design Portfolios. That was a sneak peek of the audiobook from years ago for What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer, and that was a whole chapter in the book. And also inside of that latest ebook that I wrote, So You Want to Become an Instructional Designer, there is a whole section dedicated to portfolios as well, but you can go and be able to go and locate and to find and to read more about that. And if you were saying, but Luke, I really need help and a second set of eyes to be able to do this, we do cover portfolios extensively inside of Instructional Design Institute with the Instructional Design Fundamentals course. So whatever option works for you, there's many different resources. Go down into the show notes. You can find all of those and find which one is going to best work for you. But let's go back to the original question though. Are portfolios going to become required? In theory, they very well could. For applying for jobs, you typically need a cover letter, a resume, and in some cases, a list of references, like 3 references or so. The portfolio would simply be added into this list. I've spoken with many instructional design hiring managers, and there is a clear consensus that they are struggling as well. Like me, they're overwhelmed with how many applicants they are receiving. This is especially the case for those in highly populated areas, well-known organizations, or with remote opportunities. I also can't stress enough about organizations hiring their first instructional designer, and they are beyond lost. They don't know what to look for in an instructional designer, and now they have to look through 150 resumes to make the right selection. Yeah, that's tricky. But once again, a portfolio could give you that advantage and could give you that edge. Now, folks, will this guidance work every single time? Of course not. Feel like I shouldn't need to say that, but just in case, no, it is not going to work every single time. I know that there are organizations where the recruiter would be looking at the portfolio first, not a team member, and that adds a whole different layer of complexity for everything. For now, it's where I think our field is heading, and I want you to stay one step ahead of the game. So, whether you're an aspiring instructional designer or a current instructional designer, It's a reminder to all of us to make improvements to our portfolios. And if you haven't started one yet, here's your sign. Well, hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be a friend, tell a friend, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear this because portfolios, as you can just tell from what I was talking about, I think are where we are going. So we need to talk more about them and how to do them well. Of course, if you love today's episode, be sure to leave a review wherever you are listening. I am not picky, and the reviews definitely help out with the show for more exposure and to be able to help the show to grow. So, of course, I appreciate all of you who leave the reviews wherever you are listening. And one more reminder that Instructional Design Institute's next cohort, the fifth cohort, is going to be launching in July. July 15th is our next course. So if you want to learn more about andragogy, designing learning experience with backward design, with universal design for learning, with generative AI, I have to now talk about generative AI in the course, evaluation methods, everything of a sort, and for you to have hands-on experience working with other types of instructional designers, and of course, getting my feedback along the way, then hey, Instructional Design Institute is right for you. Be sure, down below, inside of the show notes, apply today, and I cannot wait to see you inside of a class. And that, my friends, that is everything I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.